All right, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the second of three community engagement events to hear from you on new proposals to broaden the tax base and adjust select fees. Looks like we have a pretty good number of folks joining us this evening. This engagement event is specific to new tax proposals, which we'll learn about shortly. My name is Michael Spaeth. I'm a principal planner with the Town of Oro Valley and project manager for this outreach project and facilitator for tonight's meeting. My role as facilitator is to be neutral, fair, and efficient, and my primary goal is to make sure your comments are registered and ensure your questions are answered. My aim is to ensure everyone leaves the meeting with an understanding of the fee proposals and that you had an opportunity to make your voice heard. Some ground rules for this evening. Please be respectful of all participants and please no inappropriate or disruptive actions. Everyone's mic will be muted until I open it up for questions and comments. I'll provide a quick how-to on using Zoom before that part of the meeting, and we are scheduled to go until 7:30 tonight. We will start with a staff presentation by Mr. Dave Gephardt, the Chief Financial Officer for the town, with an overview of why these new taxes are proposed and a summary of the specific proposals themselves. After that, we'll be opening the meeting up for discussion where you'll be able to provide comments and ask any questions you might have. I respectfully ask everyone to hold their questions until after the presentation, as many of your questions may have already been addressed. So quickly, with regard to the schedule for the project, this meeting is part of a comprehensive effort to educate the community and garner feedback on three proposals aimed at expanding the tax base and revising some existing fees. Over the last couple of years, proposals from the Parks and Rec, Finance, and Stormwater Utility departments have been developed to ensure the town can continue to provide the high-level amenities and services the community expects. In the last few months, staff have presented those proposals to each respective board or commission, as well as town council to gather their input. A community outreach plan was kicked off last month to get the word out about this project. Hopefully, that is what prompted many of you here tonight. Now we are at the fun part where we get to interact and engage with the community to get your input and feedback. Last night, we held the first meeting discussing a proposal to revise Parks and Recreation fees. Following tonight's meeting, we will be finishing with a third meeting next Tuesday to discuss proposed revisions to the stormwater utility fees. Following these engagement events, staff will be going back to the respective boards and commissions with any revisions that are born out of our meetings and ultimately culminating with a town council decision later this fall. So with that, I'd like to introduce Mr. Gephardt and hand it over to him for his presentation. Mr. Gephardt?
Thank you, Mike. Good evening, everyone. Again, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules to join us this evening and learn more about our tax proposals. Wanted to start off with a slide showing what residents pay the town. The first category I want to highlight is what I'll call requisite taxes. These are taxes that a resident or homeowner are required to pay on certain services like gas and electric. The town tax rate for these services is 4%. And so for a household with a $150 a month combined electric and gas bill, they would pay about $6 in tax that would ultimately be remitted to the town. These utility tax collections fund a variety of town services, including public safety, public works, parks and recreation, etc. The second category you see here on the chart are what we call user fees. These are typically water or stormwater, but also encompass parks and recreation fees as well, as we heard about last night. Our example on the slide shows that an average family using 7,000 gallons of water per month pays about $55 to the town for the services, including both stormwater and water. I need to note that whatever you pay for your water and stormwater fees, these fees must be utilized for those systems. The fees cannot be utilized for general government purposes. And finally, there's the sales tax, which is our primary and largest operational funding source. Our sales tax rate is 2.5% on taxable goods, So for every $100 you pay for an item, $2.50 is added to your bill and remitted to the town. The revenue from sales tax supports a wide range of general government functions, including public safety, parks and recreation, public works, economic development, and others. These taxes are discretionary in the sense that residents have a choice on where they purchase items. Items purchased outside the town in Pima County or the town of Marana or city of Tucson are a source of what we consider leakage or potential lost revenue to the town. And that is why we consider sales taxes to be really more discretionary in nature as opposed to requisite. So when it comes right down to what a resident absolutely must pay to the town, it really is just the $6 a month and the $55 a month from our examples are roughly about $61, which isn't much. And of course, there's no property tax in the town. Your property taxes are paid primarily to Pima County, Golden Ranch Fire District, and Amphi School District for their services. Next slide. Now I'd like to address why we're proposing these new taxes. The town's general fund funds essential services to our businesses and residents, including public safety, parks and recreation, public works, and so on. This is the fund where almost all of the tax monies we receive go. And what we are seeing in the fund is that since 2021, total general fund revenues have increased about 10% from the levels in 2021 to last year. However, our police costs have increased 23% over the same time period, absorbing 80% of the revenue growth. While that's a challenge for us, it's not even the biggest challenge. That would be the significant inflation we've experienced in our pavement preservation program, which is essentially road maintenance. Road maintenance costs have increased a breathtakingly 107% since 2021. We used to pay about $1.5 million on an annual basis. Now we're well over $3 million to provide the same treatments to the same miles of roads. That has had the impact of burdening our road fund and necessitating transfers from our general fund to adequately maintain our roads. The gas tax revenues we're receiving from the state simply haven't kept up with that kind of inflation. So increases in public safety costs and road maintenance costs are causing a financial pinch point for the town that must be addressed. This is especially true since I hear time and time again how public safety and road quality are the town's top priorities from our town council and residents alike. And this is not an issue that only we're grappling with. The town of Sahuarita, just within the last couple of years, implemented their use tax and also went out to voters for a separate property tax initiative which was rejected this past November. The primary reason for both, as provided by their town staff, was skyrocketing pavement preservation costs. Next slide. Now, I've already talked about total general fund revenues. Now I'd like to pivot and drill down to sales taxes to hopefully, again, paint a picture of what's going on. Although the town collects a variety of revenues in its general fund, sales taxes is by far the most important component to town service levels. It comprises over 45% of total general fund revenues, and yet over the past 3 years, sales tax growth has been flat. I also need to point out that we recently had a study performed to determine how much the town is losing due to what we call leakage. This is a term used to describe an Oro Valley resident who does their shopping outside of the town, essentially representing potential lost revenue to the town. The consultant's report estimated that amount to be $1.8 billion, which at our current 2.5% tax rate is the equivalent of $45 million. If that sounds like a lot of money, you are correct. In 2024, the town collected about $30.5 million total in sales tax collections. And this is why shop local initiatives are so important to the town. Next slide. This slide really illustrates the point of what's happening to our sales tax collections. Here we show a rolling 12-month average of total collections on a monthly basis. I think it's safe to say that virtually all of the 10% total general fund revenue growth discussed previously happened in fiscal year 2022. It was then that you'll recall there was a massive stimulus being distributed by the federal government due to COVID, which then caused inflation to take off. That essentially set a new normal for us moving forward. But again, we haven't seen much growth, if any, since then in local sales tax collections. Next slide. So what are we proposing? Basically, this can be distilled down into three tax categories other surrounding communities charge that our town does not. And those would include a use tax, a commercial rental tax, and a telecommunications tax. These categories are included in the town's sales tax code. However, the rate has been set at 0. On this slide, you see that Marana, Sahuarita, and Tucson all collect taxes on these categories and the various rates that they charge. And what we're proposing is that these categories mirror what the town charges for most other sales tax categories, which is 2.5%. Next slide. So let's dive into what these categories are and who they would apply to. First is the use tax. The use tax is a tax on goods purchased outside of the state of Arizona, where no sales tax has been collected. Very rarely would a resident be charged a use tax. This tax would almost exclusively be charged to businesses in the town. Businesses are already accustomed to paying a use tax. They file their use tax reports with the Arizona Department of Revenue because the state of Arizona charges a use tax. We just don't have one at the local level. This tax actually levels the playing field for local businesses providing a product for sale and ensuring that there is no incentive to purchase that same product out of state to avoid local sales tax. Next is the commercial rental tax. This tax would apply to both residents in the case of self-storage rentals and businesses in the case of office or building leases. While the tax would be assessed on landlords, they could choose to pass that tax on as additional costs to lessees or renters. This tax would not or does not apply to residential rentals, so I just need to make that clear. And finally, there's the telecommunications tax. This is a tax that would be levied primarily on cell phone companies, but again, would likely be passed on to residents on their monthly cell phone bills. For any of these new taxes that may get approved, we are proposing that they get assigned to capital purposes, which are typically one-time purchases of something that lasts longer than a couple of years. Next slide. Now I'd like to give some real-world comparisons as to what these new taxes might cost to give you a sense of the scope and scale. First, I'll start with the telecommunications tax because I believe this will probably impact residents the most. And as you see, your monthly cell phone bill, if it's $50, that would an additional $1.25 would be added on as a local sales tax. Likewise, if your bill is $100 a month, obviously the tax amount would change to $2.50. And finally, if your bill is $250, that would equate to a monthly tax charge of $6.25 that would be added to your bill. Next slide. Similarly, I've got some examples of impacts for the commercial rental tax. If you are a resident that leases a storage unit, your $100 a month bill will increase by $2.50. If you're a commercial business with a $1,000 a month lease, you'll pay an additional $25 a month in tax. Next slide. And finally, if you're a business who purchases $10,000 a month in goods or inventory outside the state of Arizona, and you don't pay a sales tax on those items, you'll be charged an additional $250 in use tax. Again, just to level the playing field and ensure that there's no incentive for you to purchase those items outside of the town or utilize a vendor outside of the state. Next slide. So this slide really demonstrates the benefits to residents and businesses in the town. Number one, we think that these proposals, they keep the town competitive with the highest level of public safety response and road quality in Southern Arizona, which again, those are priorities number 1A and 1B for our residents and businesses. They increase the town's ability to withstand economic shocks and adverse events through increased diversification. They provide a dedicated funding source for necessary capital projects. A couple examples of those, or it could be a new police facility, police vehicles, or road maintenance, as already discussed. They further insulate the town from future adverse legislative actions that our legislature may take moving forward in future years. They've been known to do that from time to time to solve their own budget issues. And then it facilitates more pay-as-you-go for capital needs, reducing reliance on future debt issuances. Next slide. Hopefully I've made clear throughout the presentation that the proposed new taxes, if approved by Town Council, our recommendation is that they be 100% assigned to capital needs, including potentially road maintenance. The town currently does not have a dedicated funding source for capital and is reliant upon operational surpluses to fund these needs. Next slide. So in summary, increases in road maintenance costs and police costs have caused pressure to the general fund. While the town has undergone belt tightening and operational cost control measures, those measures alone are not sufficient to adequately address the type of inflation we've experienced, which is why additional revenue is necessary to augment those measures. What we're proposing is already in place by all of our surrounding southern Arizona communities, certainly the larger ones, Sahuarita, City of Tucson, Town of Marana. And then this is purely discussion at this point, and we value your input. So with that, I'll turn the presentation back over to Mr. Spaeth and entertain any comments or questions that you may have. Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Gephardt. Appreciate the presentation. Now is the most important part of the meeting where we turn the time over to you. To make a comment or ask a question, you'll need to raise your electronically generated hand by clicking on the raise hand icon on your screen. Depending on the device you're on, you may just have to hit the raise hand icon that's circled here in yellow at the top, or you may have to click the three dots that have more below it, or in some cases, you may have to click the reactions tab to access your raised hand. Raised hands will be answered in the order that they are raised, so please make sure to unmute yourself on your end when it is your turn to speak. I don't believe we have anybody participating by phone, but if you are, you'll have to press *9 to raise your hand. In an effort to get to as many questions and comments as possible, I respectfully ask you to keep your questions short and to the point. If someone else asks the same question you had, you can just say that you either agree with that comment or had the same question. If you have more than one question, that's fine. I'll circle back as soon as possible. My aim is to ensure everyone has a chance to ask a question or make a comment if they are so interested. If anyone is uncomfortable speaking during the meeting, you're also welcome to put your comments in the chat, in the meeting chat as well. We will be tracking your questions and comments on a whiteboard feature, which I'll have my colleague, Ms. Sims, share now. So all the comments and questions that we are tracking here during our conversation will be forwarded to the respective board or commission as well as town council as part of future meetings as a summary of these community engagement events. You can navigate around the whiteboard on your own by using the tools on the left, and feel free to zoom around anything that you need to get a clearer picture of. So as you can see on the screen, we do have three categories or silos, if you will, reflecting the three different tax categories that Mr. Gephardt mentioned. I'd like to ask that we focus on one category or silo at a time. And then, of course, time permitting, at the end, we can open it up to any other questions related to these proposed taxes. So with that, I'd like to open up the conversations first about use tax that Mr. Gephardt talked about. So if you have any questions about the use tax that was proposed, please raise your hand. Okay, I'm not seeing any raised hands, and that's great. Means we answered all of your questions. Great job, Mr. Gephardt. All kidding aside, if we can move on to commercial rental tax, of course, too, if anybody's got any questions about that. No. Again, great job, Mr. Gephardt. Fantastic information and summary. How about, all right, we're just going to open it up to everything. Does anybody have any questions? Thank you for panning around there, Ms. Sims. Does anybody have any questions about any of the proposed tax categories that Mr. Gephardt had? And if not about the specific tax categories, any larger questions related to these proposed taxes that anybody may be interested in finding out more detail about. All right, we got one. Yes, Mr. Mike Mason, please go right ahead.
Uh, I think it might be beneficial since we said that all these taxes will be used for capital purposes. Maybe you can explain how that will happen from a procedural purpose so that people know that if they pay these additional taxes, that it will definitely go to capital.
Sure, Mike, I appreciate the question. Yeah, so these categories are really, they're tracked separately by Arizona Department of Revenue. So we know exactly when the Arizona Department of Revenue, they collect these taxes. The remittances are to the Department of Revenue first and foremost by businesses or by individuals, depending on what tax it is. Um, what happens is that once the Arizona Department of Revenue collects those taxes, they will remit them to the town. Then they'll produce reports, detailed reports to the town, showing us exactly how much each category is represented in those tax remittances. Um, what we would basically do is take those remittances from these three categories and journal entry them into our capital fund. Which is it's a fund that's specifically set up for capital purchases and needs. So we would keep it really separate and distinct from the general fund. It would not get mixed in with the general fund. Just go straight to the capital fund, and that's how we would track it, and that's how we would ensure that those revenues were utilized for capital purposes. So that's my short answer to that question. Does that make sense? Mike, I think you're on
Mr.
mute.
Mason, you're on mute.
Will you continue to move money from the general fund into capital that's above the 30% reserve amount?
Yeah, thanks for the question, Mike. Yeah, we would. That is a part of our financial policies, and until that policy changes, that will still occur. So that's still our plan. We don't. I need to make clear, we don't anticipate or expect that any of the revenues generated from these new tax categories, should they get approved, that they would be able to fund 100% of the town's capital needs. In fact, we know they're going to fall well short of that. But with that said, they will reduce the amount of the transfer that's necessary out of our general fund, which should allow our general fund potentially reduce the amount of transfer from our general fund, which should keep our general fund balances a little bit healthier moving forward. But or allow us to maybe a better way to phrase that is allow us to meet our reserve targets and policy a little bit easier moving forward, because that's going to be the challenge for us, is that we know that that in about 5 years, according to our 5-year forecast, we're going to run into a deficit situation in our capital fund, and we're not going to really have any of the surplus that we've been blessed to have in the past. We're going to run out of that surplus. And so that's going to be a challenge from a capital funding standpoint and meeting our capital needs.
If you have to go to use debt to fund a particular capital project, would these funds be used to pay debt service?
Mike, I think they certainly could. They could, I think when we issue debt, we typically issue that debt with a full pledge of all of our sales tax resources. to protect our bondholders, to ensure that they get repaid, and to provide a potentially lower interest rate to the town. So they certainly could be utilized for that purpose. I know that front and center, we're looking at potentially a new police facility. That's a need that we have, that we've identified. And there is not a funding source, either operationally or from a capital standpoint, for either issuing debt or funding that facility in total as in a pay-as-you-go manner. So yes, I mean that certainly could be an opportunity for us moving forward, that we could utilize leverage these funds for debt service moving forward in future years.
Thank
And
you very
Mike,
much.
I will just say I appreciate that your cat is interested in finances. Thank you for
Yeah.
having him or her come along. So thank you for your patience. Matt, go right ahead.
Oh, thanks. So I came from a no sales tax, high property tax state. So did Dave. Is there any chance that we could, go down that road for an increase in the sales tax, or get some property tax, to go into the fund, or is that all has to go to the voters, and you're not thinking that's going to work?
Yeah, I think Matt, thanks for the question, and it's a good one. I think I've lived in the town, been a town resident for the past 18 plus years. So came from Oregon just like you, so very familiar as to how Oregon's tax structure operates and functions. Yeah, I think I don't think a property tax is on the radar at this point. I think our town residents, everything that I hear is that there is no interest really whatsoever in levying a property tax. With that said, if we did levy a property tax, we would instantly become a AAA rated community from a bond rating standpoint. But I don't think that's a direction that we would likely head. I think, and that's why we're really looking at these three tax categories. Again, I think they mostly apply to business. There is some residential impact, but it's somewhat muted. And then I think another opportunity, I guess, for town council that they could consider at some point in time is actually raising the sales tax rate if that became a necessity. But I think the hope and intent with this proposal is that we would not need to do that for a long, long time, if ever. But we would have to, obviously, that would be subject to future economic conditions and how the town was functioning financially.
Okay, great. Thank
And,
you.
I'll add one more thing. I mentioned this at the town council session, the study session that we did for them. If you want to take a look, City of Phoenix, just within the last several months, increased their sales tax rate by 0.5 percentage point, which means that they're challenged with the same types of issues that we are. This is a kind of a statewide issue that we're grappling with.
Absolutely. I should have clarified too from the outset, not just comments. If anybody has or questions, if anybody has any comments, we are certainly wanting to track those as well. And I will point out, Dave, you were answering questions, so I'm not sure if you noticed or not, but Ms. Sims put the right side of the other column here. There was a comment in the chat about having some concern over the commercial real estate tax and the impacts to small businesses who are already, challenged with trying to find a path forward, and what I guess your take may be on that particular question.
Yeah, I think that's a legitimate concern. We know that rent prices are already, lease and rent prices are already extremely high here in Oro Valley. We know that businesses pay a premium to be here. They want to be here because of the safe community, because of the good schools, because of the nice road quality and amenities that the town offers. So I certainly understand that. I will be making a presentation to our local chamber board next week. I believe I'm scheduled on their agenda for next week. So I'm looking forward to having that discussion with them and hearing their concerns and understanding the impacts to them on that side of things. So, and then we'll also be reaching out to some of the major employers in the town as well directly. And I've got some meetings scheduled with at least one of those employers moving forward as well. So there will be additional outreach to try to understand business impacts, and we will be utilizing that feedback, hopefully utilizing that feedback as well moving forward in terms of a final proposal to town council.
Okay, yes, thank you for addressing that comment in the chat. Yeah, Mike, please go right ahead.
I heard that there's a possibility that the half cent for, I think, the RTA might, I don't know, I guess either get canceled so that maybe that could be used from the viewpoint of other, like Oro Valley or other municipalities. If that were to happen, would you still do these revenue sources?
Mike, thanks for the question. Yeah, I think we would, because I think our needs are broad enough and large enough that I think that if RTA went away, RTA Next was not approved by voters, we would certainly propose a replacement half-cent sales tax that would go into our highway fund for road maintenance, street construction, and so forth, and also augment or help out, assist with our transit service that we provide. I think we would have to, we're going to have to do an evaluation, financial evaluation of what that might look like holistically. But I think there's still going to be needs moving forward that we're going to be challenged in addressing. And while we have seen, thankfully, we have seen the pavement preservation or road maintenance costs, that rate of inflation has certainly leveled off. It has not declined. It's not going down. We're not seeing deflation. So again, we're stuck at a new normal. What we're seeing is stuck at a new normal for those costs, and we need to be prepared for the future as to any other types of economic shocks or again adverse events. We have to be prepared and take that into account. And so I think. Or even adverse, I mentioned it, adverse legislative actions that our state legislature could take in addressing their budget shortfalls. So we always have to be aware of the environment that we're operating in. And I think, to me, this proposal, it makes sound financial sense. But I want to hear from residents. I want to hear from businesses and hear what the concerns are, and hopefully be able to address those as best we can. But we do have needs moving forward, and I don't know that whether RTA Next is approved or not approved, I don't know that necessarily changes the calculus for us.
Okay, yeah, Mike, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you for that. I was reading in the Explorer article, and one of the comments that one of the council member made is the fact that since we have such a large reserve set up, that maybe we shouldn't be doing these additional taxes. How will you address that?
Yeah, I think I heard the council member his comments on that issue, and I think what we do a 5-year forecast, and we update it on an annual basis. And so what our forecast shows is that we are in a structurally challenged environment currently, again, primarily due to the two factors that I mentioned: our escalating police costs. And of course, we just came through our police MOU negotiations, so we know that those are going to continue to rise. And then we have this new normal that's been established for road maintenance costs. So as it relates to the reserve, I am not in favor of, and you'll not hear a recommendation from me in terms of lowering that reserve or saying that reserve is too high. I believe that reserve is adequately established, and I think it does protect the town from risks. It's right in that 3 to 4 month threshold of keeping the town operating. If all revenues, if we had a major event, it really provides good protection to the town and its bondholders and the like, that we can continue providing services should something major happen. And thankfully we haven't had that, but we could. I mean, it wasn't too long ago that we had fire coming down on the Catalinas and so forth, and they were able to get that resolved. But if something big happened and we had a terrorist event or something of the like, and we had to address that from a cost standpoint, we would have the ability to pretty easily do so. So I do appreciate the council members' comments, but we need to keep those reserves healthy. That does provide risk mitigation and management to our town and our service levels and our residents. So I'm not in favor of reducing those or trying to burn them down.
Yeah, I agree. Thanks. Thank you.
All right, Devon, please go right ahead whenever you're ready.
It's Devin.
Oh, Devin, dang it. It's sorry. I knew that from last night too.
Remember like heaven.
That's right. I even said that in my head and I still got it wrong. I'm sorry.
This may be a really ignorant question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Why is there no retail sales tax on an item over $5,000?
I'm not aware. I'm not sure where you're seeing that, but I'm not aware that is the case.
This was a document that was printed out and the information that told us about these meetings. And it had a listing of all the things that could be charged for, and then a separate column for Marana, Sahuarita, Tucson, and Oro Valley. And everything that you talked about tonight is listed on this as you have discussed it. And I just saw that and I don't know why that would be the case.
Yeah, I don't think that is the case. From my understanding and awareness, a $5,000 equipment purchase, you're going to pay retail sales tax on that purchase. There's not a break that you receive as a taxpayer on a purchase that's over $5,000.
But we'll go back and look at some of the stuff that we put up just to confirm that that's the case. It's presented that way.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, if there's just let me make this statement here. If there's an impression that you buy something that costs more than $5,000 and you're not going to pay sales tax, that impression is false. That just is simply not the case.
Darn. I'm kidding.
Yeah.
Now, if you bought it, I'll say if you bought it out of state and you bought it in Oregon and you didn't pay sales tax on it, and then you smuggled it back to Arizona, I guess that you could use that as a potential tax break. But again, that's where the use tax would potentially come into play, and where that would apply to residents is primarily vehicle purchases. So if you bought a vehicle out of state, you didn't pay sales tax on it, and you drove it back, when you license that vehicle, you would have to pay the use tax on that vehicle purchase.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Are there any other questions or comments? Not seeing any hands up, so with that, I think we'll probably go ahead and move towards concluding here. So Miss Sims, if I could take the thank you. See if I can get my PowerPoint back up. There you go. All right. Well, with that said, I would like to just move towards the respectful of your time, move towards the end of the meeting here. Just like should have summarized while Ms. Sims still had the whiteboard up there, but we did have some comments about how tracking and ensuring the new tax revenues were going to be spent appropriately, some impacts on local businesses, what those impacts might be, whether or not you got a tax break on buying something over $5,000 or not, was a question. So I really appreciate everybody's time. Moving forward, as I said at the outset, we do have one more event scheduled for next Tuesday. If you're able to join us, we look forward to you joining us. That event is for the stormwater utility rate proposed increase. Again, next steps after this community engagement outreach effort, we're gonna get back before staff will get back before our respective boards and commissions with any revisions that have been born out of the conversations and feedback that we've gotten before moving to town council for final decision later this year. All of the boards and commissions, as well as council meetings, are public meetings, so residents are encouraged to attend those discussions as well. And I would point out that tonight's meeting is being recorded, so we will upload it to the town's website. So folks who didn't have a chance to join us this evening can certainly go back and watch the contents of this video this evening. So should you have any additional questions throughout this process, as always, please send them to ask@orovalleyaz.gov. And as always, we have more information available for you on our town's website. So with that, I thank everybody for your time this evening and hope you have a wonderful evening. Thank you.
Thanks.